Greetings, and welcome to another episode of Haunted History with Sherri Brake. That's me. In each episode, we'll venture down the not-so-straight path of the paranormal and dark history, exploring the oddness of life and death, dark and light, evil and goodness, demon and angel. We will cover subjects such as folklore, superstitions, haunted locations, cryptids, mythology, the ancient craft, haunted travel, and dark history, of course. This episode focuses on Halloween traditions. I wanted to read to you a few of my favorite verses of Haunted Houses by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. All houses wherein men have lived and died are haunted houses. Through the open doors, the harmless phantoms on their errands glide, with feet that make no sound upon the floors. We meet them at the doorway, on the stair, along the passages they come and go, impalpable impressions on the air, a sense of something moving to and fro. There are more guests at table than the hosts invited. The illuminated hall is thronged with quiet, inoffensive ghosts, as silent as the pictures on the wall. And as the moon from some dark gate of cloud throws over the sea a floating bridge of light, across whose trembling planks our fancies crowd into the realm of mystery and night, so from the world of spirits there descends a bridge of light, connecting it with this, over whose unsteady floor that sways and bends wander our thoughts above the dark abyss. And now, let's talk about Halloween. The warmth of the fire crackling in the fireplace as shadows and light play across the wooden floor. The smell of wood smoke, the flickering glow of the oil lamp along the wall, and the sound of the rain on the tin roof. All this intertwined with whispered tales of wandering ghosts and restless spirits. 'Tis All Hallows Eve in the mountains. Halloween. What does the word itself mean? The name is actually a shortened version of All Hallows Eve. Hallow is an Old English word for holy person, and All Hallows Day is simply another name for All Saints' Day, the day that Catholics commemorate all of the saints. At some point, people began referring to All Hallows Eve as Halloween and then simply Halloween. While it takes its name from All Saints' Day, modern Halloween is actually a combination of several different traditions. Many of the things we do on Halloween predate Christianity entirely. The Scots-Irish who first settled Appalachia brought their heritage with them when they settled in the mountains. Most of the traditions of Halloween date back to Samhain, the ancient Celtic New Year. Samhain, which translates to end of summer, occurred around the end of October. This is when the weather started to get cold and darkness fell earlier, and people generally feared the arrival of winter. Celtic tradition held that these times when seasons change had magical properties. When the Ulster Protestants from Ireland settled in the United States in the 19th century, they of course brought their own Samhain and Halloween traditions along. They had games, parties, and masquerade parades, and their non-Irish neighbors joined in the revelry often. Most of what the other colonists adopted was the tradition of parties and games for the children. What fun to bob for apples! Older children and young adults could attend these parties as part of local courtship practices. In the 1930s, the tradition of Halloween pranking became significant and an expensive problem in many American communities. By 1950, most cities had some kind of trick-or-treat event as a way of distracting the troublemakers. Halloween actually caught on in the United States as a commercial event around 1970, when it stopped serving only as a holiday to entertain children and became a secular holiday for everyone. As Halloween became more prevalent in the United States, it also became more controversial. Some Christians, aware of its pagan origins, objected strenuously to expanded observation of the holiday in the United States. People in rural areas especially referred to Halloween by the derogatory beggar's night, as they saw it as door to door panhandling and sometimes extortion. The tradition of pranking as currently practiced is generally just base destruction, uncreative on the part of the vandals and expensive on the part of its victims. So let's get back to Samhain. Samhain marked the biggest turning point of the year, a change in the weather as well as a shift in everybody's lives. The ancient Celts believed that this magical time opened up a sort of connection to the dead. They believed that as the sun fell and the cloak of darkness came, that the dead would wander about. Historians say that the Celts would dress up in these ghoulish outfits and parade away from their homes to lead the wandering spirits away. It was thought that if you dressed up in some kind of outlandish attire, the ghosts could not recognize you or cause you harm. This is the start of our dressing up in Halloween costumes. The Celts celebrated the night of October 31st, when the ghosts of the dead were believed to return to Earth, causing trouble and damaging the community's food supply. Celtic priests that were called Druids thought it was easier to make predictions about the future during this time as well. Wearing costumes may have originated as a means of disguising oneself from these harmful spirits or fairies, although some suggest that the custom comes from a Christian or Christianized belief. The Celts observed the event by burning crops, sacrificing animals to the Celtic gods in bonfires, which were built by the Druids. The costumes that were donned were typically made of animal skins and heads, and when the celebration was over, the Celts lit their hearth fires from the main sacred bonfire to protect them during the coming cold, dreary, dark winter months. These cultures believed that they could avoid being recognized by the ghosts that came out on the night of Samhain by wearing masks. One popular All Souls Days practice was to make soul cakes. These cakes were just simple bread desserts. And a custom called souling, the children would go door to door begging for the soul cakes, much like trick-or-treaters do nowadays. For every cake a child collected, they would have to say a prayer for the dead relatives of the person who gave them the cake. These prayers would help the relatives find their way out of purgatory and into heaven. Hopefully. Let's talk about jack-o'-lanterns. Jack lived in Ireland several hundred years ago and was known as a hateful trickster. On several occasions, he even tricked the devil. He convinced the devil to climb up a tree for some apples, and then he cut crosses all around the trunk so the devil could not climb back down. The devil promised to leave Jack alone forever if he would only let him out of the tree. Jack relented and the devil went free, but he always swore to remember the mischievous Jack if the occasion ever presented itself. Well, many years passed, and the fateful day arrived when Jack took sick and crossed over into what lies beyond. Death had arrived. When Jack finally died, he was turned away from heaven due to his life of sin. The devil wouldn't take Jack either. As Jack left the gates of hell, the devil threw him a hot ember to light his way in the dark. Jack placed the ember in a hollowed-out turnip and wandered off into the afterlife. According to the Irish legend, you might see Jack's spirit on All Hallows Eve, still carrying his turnip lantern through the darkness. When the legend came to America, pumpkins were more readily found, and the legend of the jack-o'-lantern was born. Bobbing for apples, a rite of divination. All Hallows Eve has long been a time to look into the future, and traditional festivities included several divination rituals. Divination is the ability to seek or find. These come mostly from folk traditions from the British Isles, and many have their roots in the ancient Samhain festivities. A lot of marriage divinations had to do with apples. In Celtic tradition, the fruit was associated with female deities who controlled the ways of love. This may have something to do with the inner structure of an apple. When you slice an apple in two, you can see a type of a pentagram shape, a star with 5 points on each half around the core. The pentagram was an important shape for the ancient Celtics and many other cultures. Among other things, it was a symbol of a goddess. One of the most popular divinations was for young, unmarried people to try to bite into an apple floating in water or hanging from a string. I remember doing this a lot as a child. This is something like the bouquet toss that still plays a part in some wedding receptions. The first person to bite into the apple would be the next one to marry, just like the first one to catch the bouquet at a wedding would be the next in line to marry. In another tradition, a young woman would light a candle and peel an apple in front of a mirror. While she was peeling the apple, her future husband would supposedly appear in place of her reflection. Peeling an apple was also a way to predict your life expectancy. Believe it or not. If you could cut off one long peel, you would live to a ripe old age. If you only cut a small piece of a peel, well, sorry, you would die young. Apples are still a part of Halloween celebrations in Appalachia. In addition to apple bobbing, modern Halloween revelers drink apple cider, make candy apples, and hand out apples to trick-or-treaters. Many of the Samhain divination traditions revolved around the identity of the future spouse, especially as November was the month that most of the weddings occurred. In the alphabet game, a diviner cut every letter of the alphabet from a newspaper and then floated the letters in a bowl of water. The letters that floated to the top would reveal the name of a future spouse. In a similar game, young men were encouraged to write the names of female friends on slips of paper and then wrap the papers in dough. The young men then cast the dough into the water. The woman revealed when the dough melted away was the young man's true love. If perhaps he had trouble making decisions, someone would write 3 names in the dust of the fireplace mantle, and the one that the young man's finger landed on revealed his true love. Fire and ashes. The fire and ashes of a ceremonial fire also held answers for Halloween truth seekers. Betrothed people were encouraged to blow on the ashes of a fire. If the ashes flew into the face, it warned of an unhappy marriage. The ashes around the hearth the morning after Halloween foretold the future. A footprint toward the front door meant a death within the year, and one away from it meant marriage. In colonial North America, a blindfolded person would walk across a ring of fireplace ashes or flour. A footprint toward the door didn't mean death of a loved one, it just meant bad luck. And a footprint away from the door meant good luck or marriage within the year. While most Samhain divination games revolved around marriage questions, people would also bring their concerns about their job, weather, health, and even their wealth to the party. Farmers watched their bull to see what way it lay down on Halloween. The direction indicated the direction of most wind through the winter. Other superstitions about Samhain is if Samhain fell on a Wednesday, farmers expected a very rough winter. People threw their shoes over houses to determine where they might be in the coming year. Whatever direction they pointed indicated the direction that the thrower might travel. There were multiple three-plates divinations, where each plate contained something symbolizing a future possibility. Often mothers entertained children by piercing an egg, dropping the egg white into the glass of water, and foretelling the future based on the visions created by the swirling white. Despite the best efforts of the 9th century Christian church, Samhain did not so much return as it remained. That, alongside Halloween, speaks to humanity's enduring need to acknowledge fear, uncertainty, death, and loss. Samhain offers a chance for renewal and a chance to connect lovingly with the dead again. Halloween offers a release from the norm, often exactly what people need after enduring grief. Pagans celebrate life, and with Samhain, they do so by revering the dead, celebrating the chain of lives that brought us all together. So, why do people love Halloween? Two related questions to this, I believe, is why do we enjoy being scared? And why do we enjoy dressing up as a scary figure? I mean, all of these pleasures seem to be a universal human trait, with death-related festivals and costume parades popping up in many cultures. As human beings, we're acutely aware of our own mortality and death in general. The culture is so obsessed with death because we don't really understand it, yet it looms over everything that we do. It's one of the most frightening mysteries that we face in life. One way to feel more comfortable with these unknown realms is to make light of it with a festival. This brings all of the frightening ideas out in the open, where we can face them more comfortably, enjoying ourselves with other people, instead of contemplating a mortality on our own. The translation of Samhain means summer's end, as we spoke about earlier. Difficult days lie ahead as the lack of the sun takes its toll on both our body and our mind. It could be a struggle to rally for this day of all days, and it's hard to be celebratory in years of grief and struggle, especially when you've lost loved ones. This is a season to express fear, grief, and worries as a means of tapping in to a powerful energy to heal or strengthen us for what's to come. So I'd like to leave you with an invocation for strength in facing the darkness of winter. For some, the cold grips too deep. For others, the darkness dims lights within. There is ever the mortal dread, treacherous ice, foreign storm, wild weather, too cold, too warm, sleeping earth, let us reach our roots. Chilling air, show us our breath. Sunshine, brighten our memories, that we may draw you into our skins. With the bluster of white covers your hope, when days run too close to night. Nourish us, that we may recover, as the world again becomes bright. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Haunted History with me, Sherri Brake. If you're interested in my events, my programs, ghost tours, international tours to Ireland and Scotland and beyond, check out my website at hauntedhistory.net. I'm on Instagram as River Styx, and also I have many various Facebook pages under Sherri Brake or Haunted Heartland Tours, or under the titles of my books. I've been investigating the paranormal and researching all things odd and intriguing for over 30 years. My love for the paranormal has resulted in over 20 books being published in the last 2 decades. I own Haunted Heartland Tours, and I'm thrilled to be celebrating 20 years as a business owner who never sees her calling as a true job. My calling, you ask? To share my insight, stories, my love of this crazy, dark, twisted, and intriguing subject we call haunted history. Ghost stories don't need to be made up. History is frightening enough. Don't you agree? Until we meet again, I'll see you on down the road.